like you don't know where to go. You don't know where to go. Like the reason why we went, like, you know, the reason why we went to Chicago is because the Lord told us to go there. It was the word of the Lord came to us. It's just making sense. You have to get this. It has to be deep. You've got to take time to get this. You have to pay attention for this. Every time if I were you, every time I'd gather together, I would ask, who had a dream? Anybody have a dream? Who's dreaming what? And we start paying attention to those things. Start paying attention to them and then praying, declaring, praying, declaring, praying, declaring. It seems simple, but that's what it was. And then just believe God for it. And just take the next step. The other thing that's really important about getting the word of the Lord, again, movement comes, if you're going to start a movement comes from people hearing the word of the Lord. It comes from people recognizing that's what God's doing, and we're going that direction. And but the other thing is this, and I'll tell you this one. I do want some more. Spilling. The second thing is this, is that when you said yes to being a leader, so listen, one of your top priorities is you've got to get the word of the Lord. You have to have the word of the Lord. And I'm sure if we sat here and really talked about what's the Lord said, what's the prophetic picture the Lord's painted, what is it that you're putting up in front of people, saying this is what I feel possessed by certain things the Lord's told me. Like I don't feel like I have an option. When we got to Chicago, it was the most pressure I've ever experienced in my life. You know, like it cost more money than I mean, it was well over 10 times the amount of money we'd ever spent on putting on an event. And I wasn't sure if people were going to come. And I'm walking, I literally am walking around Chicago 2 days before the event, like crying, praying and crying, walking by this river. So overwhelmed by what's going on. But what I knew in my heart was this: we said yes. And I thought if this whole thing goes down, at least I said yes. Like I know what the Lord told us. I know what He said. And we said yes to that. But one of the things you have to realize, one of the reasons why the word of the Lord is so important, is because when you said yes to being a leader, you just entered a life lived in over your head all the time. All the time. As a leader, you will be in over your head all the time, and you will be stretched beyond your capacity and your capabilities more than you ever imagined. And I thought when I first started, because I started ministry full-time when I was 19, I thought after a while, you're no longer in over your head. This was my thought process. I'm like, after a while, you kind of get some of this stuff down. You don't feel quite as overwhelmed. You don't feel quite as in over your head. And now, again, this is 19 years later. I think I'm more in over my head now than I was at 25. Like I feel more in over my head, more stretched than I've ever felt before. And it's just leadership. This is leadership. It's living in over your head. It's being stretched. And in this, what I've realized is this: leadership takes a massive amount of courage. There's a reason why people don't respond to the call to lead, because it's the scariest thing I've ever done. Which I'll tell you this, just in general, following Jesus is the most radical, hardcore thing you'll ever do with your life. You're out on limbs quite a bit. You're climbing, you're climbing mountains that you're not sure you're going to be able to get. I mean, but leadership takes a massive amount of courage, and by far is the scariest thing I've ever done. Like, you're just so far out there sometimes. And you know the story of Jonathan, his armor bearer, and they go fight, they go take on a massive army of the Philistines, there's 2 of them. Like that was a real life situation. Like, either God shows up at the top of that hill, or they die. Those were the 2 options. These are the 2 options we're in a lot. Like, I'm going to go climb that hill because I feel like that's what God told me. At the top of that hill is a massive army of the Philistines. Either God shows up or this doesn't work out for me. There's no middle ground. God shows up or I die. That's leadership. And so it's scary. It takes a massive amount of courage. A massive amount of courage. And I'll tell you this, as leaders, one of the things that we deal with the most is the issue of discouragement. It just is. It's the issue of discouragement. Because what the Lord knows, what the enemy knows is this. In order for you to fulfill the call in your life, it will take a massive amount of courage. So you have to have courage. The second thing is, your main priority is to all the people. You know what I want for tonight? I want people to come in this room and leave full of courage. I'm convinced